Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Mukam Karoti Vakshalam Pangum Langate Grim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Radha Samukasam Saktim Sakisangi Nivasanim Tramaham Satatam Bande Malavarashay Vigraham Hey Guru Gyanadini Damanda Swananda Data Karanaka Sindhu Vindavanasanayada Prasada Prasidarana Pranaya Pracharo Amso Bhagavatosmyaham Sadada Sosmi Savata Tat Kripa Peksako Nityam Tat Presta Sadgurami Swam Namo Mahavadannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurti Say Namaha Nityananda Maham Naomi Savananda Kadam Padam Harinama Pradam Deva Mavaduta Suramanim Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gudoro Ye Puspavanto Chitrasanutamonodo Jayatanga Sudato Pango Mamamanda Matigiti Matsavashvapadam Bojo Ravamana Mohano Ananda Lila Maya Vigrahara Hemava Divyakshya Visundaraya Tasmai Mahapremarasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chidadadatam Nijagupta Vitam Swaprema Namramritam Atyudada Apamaram Gurara Panchadadratmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Surupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Bande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prema Merita Rupriyan Sakarupan Bhaktiganan Krishna Prema Pralapradan Vanshakapatri Vishcha Kripasandubhya Vacha Pitita Namba Venabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnavadaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutale Srimate Govinda Swami Niti Namine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavats everyone, Vachikavatri Vishya, Kripasandavya Vacha, Petita Namba Venabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Glory to Gurudev, Namo Om Vishnavadaya, Krishna Pistaya Bhutale, Srimate Govinda Swami Niti Namine. So, again, it's my honor to glorify Gurudev. I don't know how I can, how I'll do it this evening. It's a topic that I'm not really, well, I'm a little understanding of it, but this is the Samadhi of Gurudev, 1979, and we've discussed it in our books. Krishna Lingita Vigraha, it's discussed. Encountering, it's discussed. Just try to learn the truth, and we made a special publication of it, Mayapura 79, which I did discuss at Gurudev's disappearance. I didn't go into the detail, but we discuss this booklet briefly. So, Vaidhi Magna Paya Braja Krishna Chandra, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says, you won't get Krishna in Braj just by doing Vaidhi. No, it's not possible. No. And the Samadhi of His Divine Grace, Srila Govinda Swami Maharaj, in Mayapur 1979, is definitely not Vaidhi Magna Paya. This is something totally different. This is coming from a different dimension. Right? Just like Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada has written about it, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has written about it, and our beloved Gurudev, Srila Govinda Swami Maharaj, has spoken about it on numerous occasions. The fourth dimension, Turiya, right? This is the land, or the fourth dimension, in the words of the Acharyas, the land of Krishna. Right. And as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada said, Ahokshaja Vastu Sravanaika Vaida. That if you want to understand Adhokshaja, that which is beyond the mundane perception of conditioned souls, you will have to hear, and that hearing will have to be from someone who is from that world, not this world. Therefore our Gurudev Srila Govinda Swami would always quote 3rd canto, 9th chapter, verse 11, and he would say, Shrutek Sita Pata. If you want to see, first you'll have to hear. It is the process of seeing by hearing, and that is the process, Shrota Panta or Shrota Parampara, or the Parampara of hearing. So that 4th dimension can only be accessed by someone who is from that 4th dimension, because we live in a 3-dimensional world, and 3-dimensional world means length, breadth, width, right? But the sadhu is from that 4th dimension, as I said, that turiya, and that turiya means the 4th dimensional realm of Sri Krishna. So, on the 27th of February 1979, Tuesday, right, there was a celebration for the disappearance of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, Commander-in-Chief of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and Sri Rasikananda Prabhu, both great acharyas in our line. Sri Rasikananda Prabhu, he tamed the wild elephant, initiated it, and the elephant would pay its obeisances to him when he saw it, as best as an elephant could. And this elephant was wild, and he tamed it, initiated it, etc. So Tuesday, the 27th of February, was the disappearance festival for Srila Jagannath Das Babaji and Sri Rasikananda Prabhu. On that day, one disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada left this world, Sri Srimad Bhakti Dayata Madhava Maharaj. Right. So 2 days later, now he left this world in Calcutta, 2 days later, which was the 1st of March, Thursday 1979, they held a festival of remembrance for Sri Srimad Bhakti Dayata Madhava Maharaj in Mayapura. Right. So that 27th of February corresponded to this Sunday just gone, 14th of March. And 2 days later was the 1st of March, Thursday 1979, which corresponds to today, 16 March 2021. All right? So on that day, Sri Srimad Bhakti Dayata Madhava Maharaj left this world. 2 days later, they had a festival of remembrance, ceremony of remembrance for him in Mayapur. And many ISKCON sannyasis were invited. Right? Many ISKCON sannyasis were invited, and one of those sannyasis that went was Srila Govinda Swami. And this festival was held at the Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, which, as I said, is just down the road from the ISKCON Mandir. So many sannyasis went. So at one point in the kirtan, Srila Govinda Swami collapsed and began to roll on the ground and moan, right, in the dust, rolling around in the dust. There were 2 sannyasis there. I think it was Guru Kripa and Trivikaram. And they picked him up and they took him to Lagudi. And there was a knock at the door, and Lagudi opened the door and he saw them holding Guru Maharaj. He wondered what was happening, and they said, he's collapsed in the kirtan. You should look after him. So Lagudi thought, well, must be some tropical fever, and it'll be gone in 2 or 3 days. This event, the collapsing of Gurudev in that kirtan, sparked or began the Mayapur 1979 event, which has largely been swept under the carpet by many. In fact, I had a text from a devotee in England today who said, I was in England in 1979 when this event took place. Not only didn't we hear of the event, we had never heard of Srila Govinda Swami. That's how well it was kept under wraps. So this sparked the Mayapur 1979 event, which is, we published this small publication on it. This one event, and don't mind me saying this, could have changed the history of ISKCON forever, but they chose to cover up the event. this was not the manifestation of some conditioned soul. This is the manifestation of a self-effulgent personality. And it's pretty interesting to note that the room that Lagudi Prabhu looked after our Guru Maharaj for 2 months in Mayapur is now the cashier's office in Mayapur. Right, that's the cashier's office. And on the 22nd of January 2016, Lagudi Prabhu had been in Mayapur for 5 years, and Harinamananda Prabhu went with his wife Lakshmana Devi Dasi, and he interviewed Lagudi about the Mayapur 1979 event, and you can see that on YouTube. And Lagudi said to Harinamananda Prabhu, he said, I've been in Mayapur 5 years. You're the only person that's asked me anything about it, ever. So, as I said at Gurudev's disappearance 10 days ago approximately, it was it was like a massive cover-up, right, to cover over Govinda Swami. Keep him hidden. And it's pretty interesting, Lagudi Prabhu distributed thousands of these publications in Mayapur, ISKCON Mayapur, all over to everybody. Everybody got it. We printed thousands and thousands of copies in Mayapur at the BBT printing press, and it was distributed there. And he had 3 very unfortunate encounters. One from a disciple of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, a male who had the book and was very disturbed with the book, and he ripped it up, threw it on the ground. Prabhupada's picture's on the front, right? Jumped on it, yelling at Lagudi and screaming, there's only one Acharya in ISKCON, no one else. So Lagudi was just very humble and took it very humbly. Oh, I shouldn't say. Then another devotee who was distributing the book had an encounter. He gave the book to 2 Madhijis, senior Prabhupada disciples, and they spat at him. So my point here is, this is not the activity of cultured persons, right? Especially not so-called Vaishnavas, not even aspiring Vaishnavas. This isn't even beginning Vaishnava. This is, I don't know what this is. Anyway, that's the preamble to the event. So, Gurudev had been sick in Bhubaneswar for a month, but as David Dharm said in his interview, when Guru Maharaj was sick, he would just fast, and if they said, are you sick? He'd say, no, I'm fasting. So he was, But when he got to Mayapur, and that kirtan, it, 1st of March 1979, then it became progressively, technically worse, but no one knew what it was. So who was there? Lagudi Prabhu was there. He was looking after him. David Dharm was there, who was in Cuttack, serving the Bhubaneswar temple, making life members. There's another brahmachari named Bhagavat. He was there. And many others were coming and going, trying to somehow or other assist. And in Lagudi Prabhu's words, many devotees tried to wake him up because they thought at one point that he had left this world. So many doctors came, allopathic, Ayurvedic, whatever, and they all said there's nothing wrong with him. Technically, there's no material illness. Right. So then they sent a devotee to Navadvip to get an exorcist. So the exorcist came, and he says, definitely no ghosts, definitely no ghosts. So they didn't know what to do. Then one Ayurvedic doctor came, and he said he's now in samadhi, he's in spiritual consciousness, and he has no recollection of his body. Right. So now I'll just quote Lagudi Prabhu. I'll read it because it's better the way he says it than the way I'm going to say it. So Lagudi Prabhu said, then I found out from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya had this also, the same symptoms. However, Lord Chaitanya was like this in the night or for a few hours, but Gaur Govinda was like this for 2 months. So if you're reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see the different symptoms that come on the body of Mahaprabhu, and the same thing happened to Guru Maharaj. It was really, really unheard of before. I had never read anything like this in a book. No one knew what it was. So then, so many doctors came, exorcists, allopaths, Ayurvedic doctors, whatever. No one could really figure it out. And no one could bring about any improvement. So then, somehow or other, Srila Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj arrived on the scene. He was brought to Guru Maharaj's room. Because you see, Krishnadas Babaji, even A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada considered he was Paramahamsa Niskinchana, which means swan-like personality, great personality, and no faith in material acquisition, no faith in materialistic life at all. So they brought him to diagnose Guru Maharaj, or to ascertain what happened, or what has happened, or what it is. So now in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see that when Mahaprabhu got to the Jagannath temple, he started running and was going to embrace Jagannath, and he fainted. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was there, and he got a small thread from his dhoti, put it under Mahaprabhu's nostril, and it moved. So he became hopeful. Then they took him to the Bhattacharya's house, and he examined him close, and he realised this is not some material illness. It's ecstatic symptoms. So, Krishnadas Babaji, and before I start, I think I better give a little brief history about Krishnadas Babaji, right? A little bit. Krishnadas Babaji was very good friends with Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, whom has said Krishnadas Babaji was Paramahamsa and Niskinchana. And Krishnadas Babaji, his whole thing was he chanted. And if anyone gave him any money, he would print stickers that said chant Hare Krishna, and he'd stick them everywhere. And he would jump very high in the kirtan. His voice was amazing. If you hear those kirtans that he did, very amazing that are recorded. So, and very late in his life, there were certain ISKCON devotees looking after him. One was Bhaktisiddhanta Dasa. He wrote an article about him. In that article, it said that they took him, he was not well, so they took him to the doctor. And the doctor got the stethoscope and was checking him out. And he's listening, and he stopped and he looked around the room, he's looking for something. Then he called another doctor, and that doctor listened. And then that doctor went looking for a radio or a tape player or something. And they listened again, and they said that the Maha Mantra was coming out of his heart. Right? Maha Mantra is coming out of his heart. Unheard of, right? See, this only happens in very rare instances with very great personalities. Not us. We're somewhere else. we're down the bottom. Well, I'm down the bottom. Then another instance, they had it after A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada left this world. Krishnadas Babaji came to Mayapura, so they decided to have a darshan with him. Right? So Gour Arti had finished. It was about 7:30. He sat down. All the devotees sat around him, and he started chanting mantras, singing bhajan, and speaking, and they would ask questions. At one point, and the devotee that wrote this was, the way he wrote it was really good, and the way he presents it's really good. He said at one point, as in the case of India, the power went out. Right? And so Krishnadas Babaji is still chanting all these mantras, and he started to emit an effulgence from his body that lit up the whole area. And the devotee that wrote the article, he said he looked at the devotee next to him, and the devotee's jaw was I was totally dropped. He was shocked. This is very rare. Real sadhu, real Vaishnava, real Mahajan, he's self-effulgent. And he's self-effulgent because he's committed no sinful activity. So Krishnadas Babaji was invited or brought to come and see his Divine Grace Gaur Govinda Swami, who everybody thought was in Samadhi or had left this world. So he got a thread from his cotton thread from his dhoti, put it under Guru Maharaj's nostril, and saw that it was moving. And then he smiled at everyone and said, Bhav, prema, this is love of God, right? There's nothing to worry about, he said. This is ecstatic symptoms. And Lagudi Prabhu said he was present when the Babaji was there, and the Babaji, he said, was very happy to see that his godbrother A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada had one disciple like this, right? So the Babaji said he's in Krishna's pastimes. He's in the Leela of the Supreme Lord while in that body. And the Babaji paid dandavats to Guru Maharaj and said we should not bother him. This is the symptoms of bhav and prema. So I'll read what Lagudi says about it. It's in this book. It's a fabulous book. Get it, read it. It's really good. Lagudi Das. We called other doctors, but we were advised not to give Gaur Govinda Maharaj medicine if he did not want to take it. Do not force him. They said, and if he does not want to eat, then do not force him. He neither ate nor drank. He was in Krishna Prem. This is what Krishnadas Babaji had told us. Babaji Maharaj believed that he was a Mahabhagavata. From what I can understand, Krishnadas Babaji was very encouraged that Srila Prabhupada had one disciple like this, a Mahabhagavat. It's not a normal occurrence. I was there in the room and the Babaji paid obeisance to Gaur Govinda Maharaj and then said, he's a Bhagavat, do not disturb him. So, who better to tell if someone is a Mahabhagavat than another Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat, isn't it? So Krishnadas Babaji, he could understand these are the symptoms of ecstasy, these are ecstatic symptoms, and this is a Mahabhagavat. So then they took Lagudi Prabhu said they took Guru Maharaj to an Ayurvedic doctor in Calcutta. His name was Sri Narayan Ramanuja Das. He was Ayurvedic doctor, mystic, psychic. And he said, this is ecstatic symptoms. He'd seen it before. He'd seen it before, right? And he said, if the Supreme Lord does not take him, if he stays on the planet, he will become a great personality, a great devotee, great acharya. And that's what's in this book. And that's what the devotee who's a so-called Prabhupada disciple got upset with and ripped it up, threw it on the ground, and jumped on it. Well, you're going to have to understand, folks, that there's going to be someone more advanced than you. And it's a fact that even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada writes that the neophyte thinks he's very advanced and the very advanced devotee thinks he's very lowly. Right? Very lowly. So he said if they don't take him, if Krishna doesn't take him, if Supreme Lord doesn't take him, he'll become a great personality, great preacher, great acharya. So then, this all went to Sri Srimad Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. And I'll quote what he said, and I verified this with his disciples. He said, such ecstasy, such bhav, you have never seen in your life. Leave him alone, he is okay, he is okay. It's very high Vaishnava, very high Vaishnava. Now the definition of a real Vaishnava is Paramahamsa. That's real Vaishnava. Right. So this is the what Srimad Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj said, and that was verified. So throughout the whole period, he really didn't eat, and he didn't drink, and he didn't sleep for 2 months. So 1 month in Bhubaneswar, sort of not well, technically, everyone was thinking he wasn't that well, but he was fasting. 2 months in Bhubaneswar like this, and then 1 month in Mayapura, and then 1 month in Bhubaneswar, recovering technically. So I'll read again. Lagudi Das. So Lagudi said his association with Govinda Maharaj during this time was to his advantage. Later on he said, I was able to realize at least that I was not the body. I perceived that it was like as if there were 2 persons in the body of Govinda Maharaj. One person was inside and a different activity was going on externally. One person was inside and one was the body. And one was the body. They were different because there were simultaneously 2 types of activity. I was at least able to understand that I was not the body, which I had not realized while reading the books of Srila Prabhupada. I did not have the full understanding that I was not the body, but after witnessing Govinda Maharaj's symptoms, I was put into the situation that I could really believe that we are not the body, we are spiritual soul, and we can enjoy spiritual rus without depending on the body. I came to realize this by watching Govinda Maharaj in this so-called sick period of his life. I was able to realize that the soul is aloof from the body because he was aloof from the body, so aloof. He was not depending on the body, he was not depending on anything external, not food, not water, not sleep, not anything, for living, for anything. I perceived did not depend on food, not on anything. So, Krishnadas Babiji, he said, Paramahamsa, Niskinshana, Akinshana, Srila Krishnadas Babiji Maharaj, he said, he's in Krishna's pastimes, he's in Krishna Lila. Right? So what does that mean? That means, while in this body, externally he's in this body, internally he's experiencing the Leela of Krishna. What does that mean? It means Sri and Leela. Sri means opulence, Leela means pastime, means for that person who is on that level, very advanced, he can be called Srila, because whilst in that body, he's experiencing the Leela of Krishna. So who says Govinda Swami can't be called Srila? Who's that person? Because that's what they say. So then, and this was happening non-stop, and I'll read it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the Sri Krishna Samhita verse 120, he says, 8 different emotions of ecstatic love for those that are very pure, purest of the pure, right? They are known as pulaka, standing of hairs on end, ashru, weeping, kampa, trembling, sweda, perspiring, vaivanya, fading away of colour, stamba, being stunned, swarabeda, choking, and pralaya, devastation. And Lagudi said this was going on all night, all day, non-stop. Guru Maharaj was running to get out of the room. He just had to get out of the room. So he'd run into the wall or into the window. And then at one stage, he got out of the room and was running, and it was on the first level of the long building, and he was going to go straight over the side and down, like no stick, just run, jump, bang. Lagudi said if I hadn't caught him, he may have died. And he said he lost body weight, he lost half his body weight. So his legs were like arms, but he said, very strong, very strong. To control him, contain him, they had to tie him up. It's bizarre, isn't it? And this is nothing what I'm saying. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what happened. Now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has said, and this is exhibited on the body of Mahaprabhu, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu mentions 8 kinds of transcendental transformations in the bodies of very advanced devotees. These are sometimes checked by the devotee, and there are 2 stages of such checking, technically known as Dumayita and Zwalita. The Dumayita smoking stage is exhibited when one or two transformations are slightly present and it is possible to conceal them. When more than 2 or 3 transcendental transformations are manifest and it is still possible to conceal them, although with great difficulty, that stage is called Zwalita, lighted. When 4 or 5 symptoms are exhibited, the blazing stage has been reached. When 5, 6 or all 8 symptoms are simultaneously manifest, that position is called Udipta, inflamed. And when all 8 symptoms are multiplied 1,000 times and are all visible at once, the devotee is in Sudipta, intensely inflamed stage. I don't know if anyone's experienced that recently, but but that's the goal. And these are the symptoms Mahaprabhu is experiencing. But that's the goal. So unless you reach that stage, don't worry about it. Keep chanting. So then, and again, this is just the tip of what was happening, tip of the iceberg of what was happening. So then Lagudi Prabhu said that they took him on the Mayapur temple bus to a physician in the Gaudiya Math who administered herbs. On the way to this doctor, one devotee in the bus said, he said, look, we better chant our Gayatris and break our threads. It could be a ghost. So Lagudi said, everyone in the bus chanted their Gayatris, and right? But Lagudi said, I didn't. I just chanted Hare Krishna because I knew what was going on. So then they went to this Ratnagarbha Maharaj, and they all broke their sacred threads. Lagudi said they committed great offence. Anyway, so they got to this Ratnagarbha Maharaj, and he administered herbs to the neck of Guru Maharaj. And from there he made a diagnosis. He said, he's not sick. But he said, and I'll read it because it's... He said he was taken to many other doctors, but they all maintained that he's not sick. Then he was taken on the bus, right, and then he went to this Ratnagarbha Maharaj. When they arrived at his practice, the Kaviraj administered herbs to Govinda Maharaj's neck, and on the basis of his diagnosis, he said, no, he's not sick. But then he continued, there is too much spiritual potency here for him. Take him out of the Dham. Get him out of Mayapur. The internal relationship is too strong. Get him out of the Dham. Do not go to either Vrindavan or Mayapur, and no big kirtans. Do not go to the Yamuna or the Ganges. He was then taken back to his room at the Mayapur temple, and he was still the same. One of the managers of the Mayapur temple came to see what was going on. Lagudi explained the situation to him. The manager said, just keep him locked up. So one brahmachari, he went up to the GBC meetings and he said to them, I think you should come down here and have a look. What's going on? Because it's not normal. But they didn't really pay heed. They paid no attention. They just didn't get involved. That's when one of them came down and had a look and just said, keep him locked up. Right. So as I said, this Mayapur 1979 event could have changed the whole history of ISKCON, but they chose to reject it and sweep it under the carpet. So then, as time went on, Lagudi said many other things happened. Then he said, at one point, his body changed colour. Right? And one other devotee had sent me some information. He said that he was looking at Guru Maharaj and his body was going very light and very dark, very light and very dark, very light and very dark. But Lagudi said, and we've got to understand, Lagudi was the personal servant for Guru Maharaj through the whole period. He had the most contact. Right, so his information is invaluable. So he said his whole body changed colour from white to blue to red colour to pink. And, Mahaprabhu, if you read the Madhya Lila, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu's, it was changing pink, yellow, like that. Body was changing colour. So in the Nectar Devotion it said that the colour red is very rarely seen. And it's due to, if colour change takes place due to excessive jubilation, the hue turns red. Because such a change of colour is so rare, Srila Rupa Goswami does not further discuss this point. So red's a very rare colour to see. Anyway, so the body was changing colour. Then Lagudi Prabhu said, read page 21 of the book. He said, the most amazing thing happened. And before I read it, I'll just quote a few things. Because this happened to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur did this. Srila Narottam Das Thakur did this. Srinivasacharya did this. And there's a book written, The Lives of the Vaishnava Saints, page 60 to 63. It's described the Manjari Bhav of Srila Srinivasacharya. And in the life of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as you know that story, he was in Vrindavan, he was preaching Parakiya. Jiva Goswami had preached Swakya because of his disciples mainly. So that they were preaching Swakya. No, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was preaching Swakya. So they decided on a plan, I'm just saying this really quickly, set upon a plan to kill him, because that's what you do if someone's got a different opinion to you, right? No, you don't, but I'm just saying. But that goes on. It goes on. You've got a different opinion than me, I have to do something against you. It's a real neophyte, right? This is the absolute neophyte position. Anyway, so every morning Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur would do Vrindavan Parikram. So these Brahmin Vaishnavas decided they'd follow him, hide in the bushes and then get him. So he realised they were there. So he manifested his Manjari form, 12-and-a-half-year-old girl picking flowers, and then they came to him. And they said, we're looking for this sadhu, have you seen him? She says, no, I'm just picking flowers for my, Madhiji, or whatever she said. And so they were sort of dumbfounded. And then he walked off, and as he walked off, changed back into Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Then they realised this is a very powerful personality. And they went and begged forgiveness and took initiation. And an interesting thing is, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, some say that there's a gap between Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Narottam Das Thakur, so there's a gap of 100, 120 years, so it's okay to take someone who hasn't been on the planet for 100 years as a guru. But that's not Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's opinion. In his commentary on the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, and that book, Sri Sankalpa Kalpadruma, I got it right for once, he lists this sampradaya, and it starts at Lokanath Goswami, who initiated Narottam Das Thakur, who's Vilas Manjari, right? And then Narottam Das Thakur initiated Ganga Narayan Chakravarti. Ganga Narayan Chakravarti initiated Krishna Charan Chakravarti, and Krishna Charan Chakravarti initiated Radharaman Chakravarti. And then Radharaman Chakravarti, and that Radharaman Chakravarti initiated Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was Vinod Manjari. Right. See, he lists all the Diksha Gurus in the line. They're not, you get my point? And he was Vinod Manjari, but his guru, Radharaman Chakravarti, was Tulsi Manjari. And that Krishna Charan Chakravarti was Rangadevi, and that Ganga Narayan Chakravarti was Prema Manjari. And Narottam Das Thakur was Vilas Manjari. It's a whole line of siddhas, whole line of Manjari. So where's the gap? Just to fill in the gap, there's no gap. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur did this as well, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Srila, hankering for perfection, verse 1, part 5, song 8, he says, this maidservant has a complexion just like lightning. He's talking about himself. And she is wearing a sari which is which has star-like patterns all over it. My name is Kamala Manjari. That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? Manjari form. Eternally appearing to be only 12 and a half years of age. I always live within the abode of Sri Swananda Sukhara Kunj. So there's three acharyas that are alluded, have alluded or alluded to their Manjari form, because that's Manjari Bhav, Gopi Bhav. Oh, don't say that, that's Sahaja, right? We can't say that. That's what they say, right? Don't say that, don't say that. But that's the goal. You're either going to get a Gopa form or a Gopi form. There's no transgender in the spiritual world. It's Gopi or Gopa. That's it. And they've alluded to their Manjari form. So, Lagudi said, the most amazing thing happened. And he said that Guru Maharaj was doing all sorts of things. At one stage he was swinging a swing, pushing this. There was no swing there, but he was swinging the deities, or swinging Radha and Krishna, just pushing them. And other times he would, devotees would walk by and he'd pay full dandavats to them, saying, I've offended this person, I've offended that person. People didn't expect him to do that, and they'd walk on his fingers or, whatever, because they just didn't expect. They'd freak out. And Guru Maharaj would get up, I've offended you, I'm such an offender. And devotees would say, you haven't offended me, Maharaj. You couldn't offend me. You're so saintly. So, page 21. Yep. So the most amazing thing happened. Then the most amazing thing happened in Lagudi Prabhu's own words. He changed body like a woman from top to bottom, whole transformation. His whole body looked like a woman's with a sari on, green sari. In front of Lagudi Das there was no more male form, but a female form wearing a sari. This happened instantaneously from male to female, Manjari Bhav. Now, in the 8th chapter of the Madhya Leela, in the Ramananda Samvad, right, he makes the point that everything he and Mahaprabhu are discussing cannot be understood unless one is in that Manjari Bhav or Gopi Bhav. And it can only be understood orally. One must hear. Adhoksija Vastu Sravanaika Vaida, from that superior source. So, then after Guru Maharaj started to come out of it a bit, because he lost all languages. He was speaking a language and Lagudi said, I don't know what it was. There was none of the languages that I could pick up on, Then after Guru Maharaj started to come out of it a bit, he'd poke at Lagudi and go, what's that? And say, that's your arm. What's that? That's a hand. What's that? That's a body. It was all strange, very strange. What is this? What is that? So as I said at the beginning, this took place in a room in the Long Building. Is that the Conch Building? The Long Building? And in one of the rooms there. That room is now the cashier's office. Now, bearing in mind, Srila Rupa Goswami, he said in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he's described the symptoms of Shraddha to Prema. That room has become the cashier's office. So from Prema to cash. No offence. That room should have been made into a shrine. That was a manifestation of the self-effulgent Acharya in ISKCON, in the ISKCON branch of Mahaprabhu's mission, according to the Bandesha Krishna Chaitanya Prema Meritarupiyan Sakarupan Bhaktaganan Krishna Prema Prala Pradhan, and the Vishva Sakakari Eka Mandala Mahamaha Sakachayala Brahmanda Sakala principles from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada writes, his commentary in those two verses, ISKCON's one branch, just one branch. So it was the manifestation of the self-effulgent Acharya in that line, coming in succession from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in the ISKCON branch. But, and as I said, this one event could have changed the whole course of the world history of ISKCON, but they chose not to accept, to reject, sweep it under the carpet. So, in all the books that are published by the BBT, you see that it stops at number 32, the Parampara A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. But I say, with all these books we have published, just the glories of His Divine Grace Gour Govinda Swami, all these books, if you bother to study them, if you bother to read them, if you take any of this information to heart, you'll understand the succession went to him, no one else. And he was the self-effulgent, manifesting Acharya in the line of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he would be number 33. But they chose to cover it over, hide it, reject it, etc. And last thing I'll say is that Harinamananda Prabhu's videos on YouTube, watch it, it's very nice, interviewing Lagudi in Mayapura on all this. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Dandavats.
Take questions?
If it's not too hard.
You said he didn't eat or drink.
Well, that's what he's saying.
How is that possible?
I don't know, because Lagudi said they'd put a cup of water there.
Yeah.
And he'd knock it over, or he'd kick it over, or he'd whatever, just... interestingly enough, when Guru Maharaj first walked onto the Sri Krishna Balaram land in Raman Reddy, right, and that devotee that was there, Gunadava Prabhu, he said 3 things, he said. Well, he said a lot of things, but 3 things. He said, 1, Guru Maharaj was the first at Mangalati every morning. 2, I never saw him eat, and I never saw him sleep. I mean, he must have been eating and he must have been sleeping, but he said, I never saw him eat, I never saw him sleep.
Another question. So Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj...
Say that again?
Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj was very respected and understood to be a very close friend of Prabhupada. Did you say that?
He's good friends with Prabhupada.
So when he said that Guru Maharaj is experiencing balm of brain, did not the disciples accept that because he was so...
Well, the ones that were there did.
Yeah.
But even one sannyasi came down. What was his name? He's now left his body. Oh. Glasses.
Bhakti Churu.
Yeah, Bhakti Charu. He saw it. He heard Krishnadas Babaji say everything, but he never spoke about it. Except when he came to Bhubaneswaram when Gurudev had left, and he said he went into, Krishnadas Babaji came and Guru Maharaj went into ecstatic symptoms or something, but never made any point of it. So it was truly a conspiracy. And Laguni Prabhu said he made notes of the whole thing. And 2 ISKCON sannyasis stole the notes and destroyed them.
What did Guru Maharaj say about himself? Anything?
Well, the last interview I did with Laguni Prabhu was in North Sydney Temple, in a room, and Guru Maharaj was there, Laguni Prabhu was there, Chaitanya Chandra was sitting there, Parameswari was sitting there filming and recording, and I was sitting here interviewing Laguni Prabhu. And Guru Maharaj, because Laguni can really talk, like he can talk. He knows a lot, and it really comes out. Anyway, and Guru Maharaj knew that, so he got his beads and he went, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita, and he was going to chant, right? And Lagudi started speaking, and Guru Maharaj was just stunned. He didn't move. He just was like that, didn't move. And finally at the end I said, Guru Maharaj, do you want to say anything? And he looked at me and he said, what I'll say? What do you want me to say? And then Chaitanya Chandra was like, wow, I've never heard that in my life. And then Lagudi and Guru Maharaj started talking about the old days in Bhuvan, real old days in Bhubaneswar, which I've got on tape. And Guru Maharaj wanted to print it. He said, yeah, print it. Just print it. No problems, print it. But Guru Maharaj I could see, he was totally stunned. He was like...
So he couldn't remember, or...?
I don't know, he was just like this.
He
Didn't chant one round, didn't chant one mantra, he was just listening.
just listening.
It was pretty ecstatic. And then the whole of North Indian temple, all the devotees racing around doing their thing, but in this little room, the ecstatic pastimes of the heir apparent to the acharyaship of ISKCON are being discussed. Okay, Dandavats everyone. I got another question.
Just one more. I just wondered if the books you publish and write of Srila Gour Govinda Maharaj are on Amazon.
Are they books on Amazon?
Yeah, they're on Amazon.
Oh, cool.
Dandavats everyone. Thanks for coming to the show. Groups and do the ever show.